Cool. So in the last video about the scripting language, I showed you how to implement the basics of a lexer and a parser and how to map that to internal commands in your script. Go watch that if you haven't yet. Today I want to show you how to switch from terminal mode to edit mode, basically. And I'm going to give you a quick example right now of how that kind of works in my game, and then we'll go over it in code. So basically, like, the game, as you can see, it now starts up. We see our player and we can move around and stuff, and I showed you in the multiplayer tutorials how to set all this stuff up. But basically what I wanted in my game was like a terminal, like you would have in Linux or on a Mac, I guess even on a Windows machine, but you know. And I wanted it to be, as soon as you start typing, it's basically going. So like if you wanted to build a new server, you know, because in our game we're kind of building a network, and it's like a real-time strategy game. You build a network around you, and people will have to like exploit your network and get to your player IP, and then you're out of the game. But the idea was to have like a scripting language involved, so that more advanced players can like write scripts to do things faster. And one of the scripts is like, so I'll show you something real quick before we get started. So here we have the game directory, and we have all the standard game files, like our scripts and our fonts and icons and even the game itself. But I also have this subdirectory called the file system. Now the file system is what the user will have inside the game to store files, store scripts, whatever, you know, downloads files. This is their simulated file system in the game. And so there is this one file called console.rc right here. And this will be executed as soon as the console is called. It's kind of like a bash RC, if you know Linux a little bit. And so I needed to have an editor, basically, to allow people to edit files and write scripts. And if I edit console.rc right now, I just do it like this, edit console.rc, I switch to editor mode. And it might be a little dark here, but like you get syntax highlighting and whatever, and you can just do build server, and you can see you get even line numbering. And this is really where Godot is like kind of awesome, because it gives you all this stuff out of the box if you know how to manipulate the text edit object quite well. And so, okay, I've written a little script, like my console.rc will now always build me a server and install port scanning on that server, right? And as the game evolves, that will make more sense to you, but just consider this for now just to be about the editing functionality. So I hit escape, it asks me if I want to save that file, I say yes, and then we can now see that this console.rc is in fact, it has some content in it. Now something is going wrong, it's not writing new lines very well, but we'll fix that soon. And let me just exit the game, and we'll go over some of the code for this, because it's kind of interesting. So let me find the edit function, because that's basically what we're calling it. If you've watched the first video about the scripting language, you will know that anything I type in that terminal, that simulated terminal, goes through the lexer and the parser and maps to a command in my script. So edit does exactly the same thing. And once we get there, so we said edit console.rc, so console.rc will be our file name. I get my root, and then I get my editor node, which is, if you can see it here, the editor is an empty node, basically a null, that just contains a script, okay? And then content will be load file name. Now load file is this function right here. It takes a file name, it creates a new file object, sets the content to empty, then it prints out some debug information, and then it opens that file from this subdirectory file system that I just showed you in Windows Explorer. So it does file name dot replace period with dot, because if you see here, like as my commands are built up, you can see that period is actually passed as a string right here. So I need to just replace that for an actual period. And that's just the way that, because I do character by character on the input, you could see that in the previous video about the scripting language. And it opens it for reading. So it takes the content by using get as text on the file that we just opened, and then it just closes the file, because now we have our content of the file in here and we just return that. Okay, so I set editing to true. That just makes sure that I'm not rendering my normal terminal prompts and everything. And we call on the editor, so on this node with this script that we got right here, we just call edit, we pass in the content and the file name. So here we have the editor script, has a few global variables such as the file name, whether or not it's in a saving state, and the saving buffer. We'll get into the input section soon. So we called the edit function, and so we get the root, we get the console, we store in f_name the f name, that's what we're passing in, the file name, and then for keyword in console keywords, we add a keyword color. So we add green as a syntax highlighting color to all keywords that are defined in this console's keywords array. Which again, go back to the first video to understand what this actually does. But we're just adding syntax highlighting to all the keywords here. We set caret blink to true because blinking carets are cool. We set line numbers to true, show line numbers. So that's what I said, like how cool Godot is with this text edit object, is that it actually already has built-in line numbering and it has built-in syntax highlighting. All you have to do is set it to true. You add some keyword colors, you set syntax highlighting to true, and it works out of the box. That's the cool part about it. And then we get the content that we got out of our load file method earlier, and we just overwrite the text of the console with that content. Okay, so now we're in editing mode and we can write our script. And as soon as we hit escape, which is what you can see defined here in our input thing, it goes to the ask save method right here, get the root, get the console, fill the save buffer with console text, set saving to true, and insert text at cursor, save this file, yes, no. So now, if see, because saving is no longer false because we set saving right there. So now if the input is key pressed Y, then we save the file. And here in save file, again, get the root, get the console, create a new file object, empty out the console text, set show line numbers as false, syntax highlighting as false. Then we open the file with the global file name that we set over here, right? Store the string with save buffer, which was defined there, and then just close the file. And now we're back in edit mode, in terminal mode. So we go back to basically this part. The only thing is, and I'm gonna just run the game one more time and show you what I want to improve on in the next video. Okay, so I had this problem earlier. My build function is, this function is currently broken because of the multiplayer code. It changed some things around, so I have to empty out this file to make sure that the game still works. So here we go. Okay, if I go to edit console.rc, now we can edit our file. All right, we save it. As you can see, when it goes back to terminal mode, what it should have done is remembered what all of the stuff that happened before going into edit mode and go back to that state. So it really should just say, it should say this and be on a new prompt basically. So that's something I have to go into the next time, which is basically just going to be a case of keeping a large array of history, and that history will be called back once we get out of edit mode. Like this whole terminal thing is actually going to be quite a complex thing to get working like flawlessly, but it's going to work, and it's going to be a very interesting way to approach a game console, because it's way more flexible than having just a text label or like a big text field showing all the output, and just one text input field for a one-line command. Like we will be able to go and move the cursor around and do a lot of like really cool things. It's really simulating like moving a terminal into raw mode. If you've ever tried to make your own terminal editor like Vim or something, you would know what moving into raw mode means, and how much control you get over the terminal that way. And that's kind of what this is simulating, and kind of what I want, because I want this terminal to really simulate a Linux terminal as much as possible, because that's kind of like the intention of the game. I mean, obviously, on top of that, we're going to build a lot of GUI tools, like I explained in the previous video. But I wanted to give advanced players the ability to go, more low level, and have a scripting language and a proper terminal and stuff. So in any case, that was this. My next video is going to be about multiplayer again, because I'm working on making user accounts and login, so you can get your user account back in other games. And in the second video of multiplayer, I created a little API in Ruby on Rails. And then in the third video, that's going to come out soon, maybe tomorrow, I was going to interface the Godot game, the Godot code, with that API. So like, look out for that, and then that's it for now.